This is Gutsy's Garage. Today we're going to be talking about keeping you cool, and it ain't talking about keeping you cool on a bait ball, because that's not what I do. We're actually talking about keeping your engine cool, because if they stop pumping water, you're in big shit. Motors, in simple terms, are just a transfer of energy. So we're turning fuel and electrical energy into mechanical energy. In the end, we're just making things go around in little circles. Anything with energy causes friction. We need to cool that down, and the best way to do that, seawater. There are a couple of things that do this, one being the impeller water pump, and other one being a thermostat. All right, so a thermostat is a pretty clever gadget actually. It will open and close at specific temperatures between 50 and 60 degrees. It regulates to make sure that that water temperature is exactly the same in the block at all times. They actually do wear out, and funny enough, they hate salt water like the rest of the engine parts and everything else in the world, so they do need to be replaced, and the guys from Outboard Spares happen to supply them. Just to show a bit of demonstration of how a thermostat actually works, we've got a hot and cold bowl of water. We boiled a kettle and chucked the thermostat in there, and you just slowly watch it open, and then chuck it back in, and you just slowly watch it close. That salt residue, when the water dries up, it leaves that residue. You don't flush your motors, that is inside, and it builds up. It's very much like calories in your heart. So next minute, heart attack, and then bang, all of a sudden you'll grab a piston, no good. So the easiest way to avoid all this is, as soon as you get home or down the wash down, plug it in the fresh water, run it while it's hot. Fresh water dissolves salt. The thermostat will be already, so you don't have to wait for it to open, but I do suggest doing it while the engine's still hot after you come in. The next day, it probably won't be as effective. They should be probably replaced around 200 to 300 hours. It's a really simple chore. Located at the top of the cylinder head or the exhaust plate. We're going to knock this off and have a look at it, and if it needs to be replaced, which we're going to replace it anyway, yeah. All the outboard mechanics out there, you know how I feel about opinions, keep them to yourself. Righto. So you can see, there's a bit of bastion point right there, but the corrosion on the spring there, see the gap there? So obviously this motor hasn't been running at its optimum temperature, so we're going to chuck a new thermostat in there. Yeah, it'll be right for another 5,000 hours. It'll be right for another 200 to 300 hours. Right, so that's the thermostat done. Now we'll drop the lower unit off, which is these bolts right here. We'll chuck it in the vise, and we're going to do the water pump impeller, the plates, and all the necessary seals and stuff. The key components, very simple. The rubber, obviously, impeller itself, and then the backing plate and the housing. All these parts need to be replaced, otherwise this thing doesn't work properly. Yeah, so there's not really much of a filter on your lower unit where it sucks the water from. There's a lot of like kelp or bits of weed, crap in the water. You can get overheating, it sucks it in. With all the sand and all that sort of stuff, it can really mess up your cooling system. This actual little bit of rubber, as fragile as rubber is, sand and grit will actually ruin at the same time, that's why they sell it all in a kit, as quickly as the rubber. So any damage to this is obviously going to restrict the amount of water flow going through your cooling system. Very easy to replace. All right, so when the engine starts, it spins this shaft, which the water pump is attached to with the impeller, sucks water from here, forces it up, which takes it to the motor. But there will be wear in this, I can assure you of that. Need a little persuasion, and for that, we need a knockometer. As you can see here, here's the one I took out. It's obviously got a memory, it's all curled over. Here's a new one. So you fire that up, obviously it's not working at its optimum performance, pumping water around your motor, and keep it nice and cool. We've got the base plate off here. As you can see, here's the new one, and here's the old one. See the wear marks in there where a bit of sand has grabbed in there, all the way around actually. All right, so there's another thing in the housing. There's this weird looking double gasket sort of thing, which obviously does the bottom seal and then they join it together and goes up the top. All comes in the kit, so don't just go, oh yeah, we'll just replace the impeller or whatever. Just do the whole lot. This has been Gutsy, keeping it cool with Outboard Spares. So anyway, this is my little baby RM. It's actually the European spec. They didn't like the white guards, so they went with the yellow. The seat's original, very hard to find. No, you hang up.